It wasn't shocking to see the IndianaFever fall to the Minnesota Lynx. But what caught fans off guard was the level of physicality that turned this matchup into something closer to a wrestling match than a professional basketball game. Tensions boiled over, and at the center of the chaos was Lexie Hull, who took a nasty elbow that left fans outraged. Social media exploded, and it wasn't just because of the outcome on the scoreboard. It was about what was happening to the players on the court, specifically the relentless abuse the Fever continued to take with little to no accountability from officials or the league. This all unfolded not long after another controversial moment involving CaitlinClark and Sophie Cunningham, adding fuel to a fire that's been burning all season long. Indiana fans are reaching their breaking point. Players are left unsure of how to respond, and as usual, the league's silence speaks louder than words. Let's talk about what actually went down in what turned into a drama-filled clash. This wasn't a typical rough-and-tumble game. This was something more. It was Indiana against Minnesota, and from tip-off it had the energy of a grudge match. Fans came in already tense because the Fever's season has been teetering on the edge. CaitlinClark's injury has disrupted the team's rhythm, and add in the presence of Sophie Cunningham, known for bringing intensity and sometimes controversy, you just knew emotions were going to run high. But nobody could have predicted that Lexie Hull would take a blow to the face that looked more like a message than a basketball move. Kayla McBride threw the elbow that dropped Hull, and while it might have seemed questionable in the moment, the replays left little room for doubt. Aaliyah Boston's stunned reaction said it all. It wasn't just a rough play, it felt deliberate. This wasn't just a hard-fought contest. This was about control, dominance, and a lack of consequences. The internet didn't hesitate. Within minutes, fans were calling out the cheap shot, citing yet another example of Indiana players being physically targeted while the league turns a blind eye. The frustration wasn't just about one incident. It was the culmination of a season filled with similar moments, Clark being hit and shoved, Cunningham drawing heat just for being aggressive, and now Hull taking an elbow that could have been out of a UFC highlight reel. Nafisa Collier had already elbowed Natasha Howard earlier in the game, knocking her flat, and the refs did little to keep things in check. When McBride swung on Hull, it wasn't just heat of the moment. It was a reflection of the free-for-all this game became. Yet again, nothing significant was done. A technical here, a whistle there. None of it changed the tone. When players are hitting the ground more often than hitting shots, and when elbows are flying unchecked, something has gone very wrong. The truth is, the WNBA has a growing issue on its hands, and it centers around a lack of accountability and protection for its most visible players. CaitlinClark is supposed to be the league's golden ticket, the breakout star who's selling jerseys, packing arenas, and drawing casual fans in droves. But instead of being celebrated, she's become a target. And worse, the league has allowed it. Game after game, she's taken hits that would spark national debates in the NBA. If Steph Curry or Luka Doncic took even half the abuse Clark has absorbed, it would be headline news. There'd be league memos, suspensions, and endless commentary. But when it happens to Clark, silence. No statements. No fines. Just another clip for fans to rage over online. And it's not just her anymore. Now her teammates are catching strays. Lexie Hull is the latest. But how long until someone gets seriously hurt? And through it all, where's the leadership? Commissioner Kathy Engelbert has barely acknowledged the repeated fouls on her star players. The most marketable player in years is being slammed to the floor on national TV. And Engelbert's response is to disappear behind press releases and PR fluff. The league loves the attention Clark brings, but refuses to stand up for her when it matters. That's not just weak, it's irresponsible. The game itself was rough from the start. Minnesota came out strong with Collier dropping over 30 points, and Indiana couldn't keep up. Kelsey Mitchell poured in 26 points in a desperate effort to keep her team competitive. But without Clark and with a revolving door of guards trying to hold it together, the Fever were overmatched. And then the elbow to Hull happened, and you could feel the breaking point being reached, not just on the court, but throughout the fan base. What made it worse was the reaction, or lack thereof, from the Fever players. Hull goes down, clearly hurt, and her teammates just stood around looking shocked. No one stepped in. No one pushed back. No one even got in McBride's face. This wasn't about advocating violence, but there's a difference between composure and apathy. You're supposed to stand up for your teammates. The Fever looked more like stunned spectators than a team with each other's backs. And this isn't a one-time issue. Every time something happens, it's the same reaction: silence. Players put their hands on their hips. Coaches glance at the refs, maybe say something under their breath. Then it's back to business as usual. That's why the pattern keeps repeating. Opponents know they can get away with it. They know Indiana won't retaliate, not with a foul, not with a stare down, not even with a loud word. And the message that sends? Indiana is soft. It's not just the players either. Coaching matters. And the Fever staff looks like they're playing chess while their players are in a street fight. The lack of emotion from the bench is telling. Christie Sides is the exception, occasionally showing frustration, but the overall vibe is passive. Contrast that with coaches in the NBA who would have been on the court, shouting at refs, getting ejected if they had to. That kind of fire sends a message to your players and the other team. You're not going to let them get bullied. Indiana, their bench looks like they're waiting for an Uber. Hull's injury isn't just a one-off play. It's symbolic. It shows just how far this team has slipped. They're barely clinging to a playoff spot. They're losing players. And even if Clark returns, what's the point? Do you risk her health just to get swept in the first round? The debate among fans is real. Some say let her play for experience. Others argue she needs to stay safe. After what happened to Hull, you can't blame people for leaning toward caution. It's not worth risking the future of the franchise just to limp into the postseason. And let's be clear, this isn't just about Indiana. This is a league-wide problem. The WNBA wants to grow its audience, sign bigger media deals, expand to more cities. But how do you build something when the core of your product, your stars, aren't protected? Who wants to tune in if every game features cheap shots and injuries? That's not growing the game. That's driving people away. Look at Kayla McBride. She's not some rookie who lost control. She's a veteran. She knows what she's doing, and she knew exactly what that elbow meant. It wasn't defense. It was frustration, and she knew she could get away with it. That's the failure. When players know there won't be consequences, they act accordingly. Fans see it too, and they're over the excuses. It's just physical basketball. Hull needs to toughen up. This is how the game's always been. No, that's a losing mentality. There's a difference between hard-nosed defense and reckless, dangerous plays. One makes the game better. The other ruins it. The WNBA has too much of the latter and not enough accountability to stop it. So here we are. Another game, another hit, another non-response from the people in charge. The pattern is exhausting and fans are fed up. They're watching Indiana flounder, game after game, while nothing changes. Maybe the Fever squeak out a win over Chicago, but the rest of their schedule is brutal. Seattle, Phoenix, Minnesota again, it's a minefield. Best case scenario, they survive. Worst case, they fall apart. And let's be honest, without serious change, it's looking like the latter. The biggest irony? The Fever actually have talent. Kelsey Mitchell is an elite scorer. Boston can dominate the post. Hull and Petty bring spark. And Clark? She's a generational player who can change the course of a franchise. But none of that matters if the culture is broken. If they can't protect each other, can't push back, can't stand up to the hits, then it's all wasted. Until someone in that locker room decides enough is enough, Indiana will keep getting outplayed and out-toughed. The final straw for many fans was the lack of fire. Hull goes down, and her team does nothing. Nobody shoved. Nobody barked. It's not about violence, it's about heart. Look at Cunningham. You don't have to love her, but you can't deny her passion. She's the one Fever player who refuses to be intimidated. That's leadership. That's fire. And right now it's something.